Okay, everybody, let's start the meeting. Hi, welcome everyone to the Stairway Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. Let's open the meeting with a moment of silence followed by the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. My name is Marilyn. I'm an alcoholic. Hi, everybody. I'm filling in for Bill tonight to chair the meeting. He had to work, so he asked me if I would do the meeting, and it's always an honor. Here's the definition of Alcoholics Anonymous: is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution. It does not wish to engage in any controversy. Neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And this is a we teach from the big book. We believe that all the answers to all your problems, including but not limited to alcohol, are found in this book. And this is a history book. It tells us what the first 100 did and precisely how they did it. And it gives us the promise that if we do precisely what they did, we'll get what they got. And so this book gives us the ability to relate to the people in the book so that we can determine ourselves if we're an alcoholic. No one can tell you you're an alcoholic. That's a conclusion you have to come to yourself. And it also, then, if you are alcoholic, if you do what these alcoholics did, you'll achieve the same results they did. And that's a lot of promises, one of which is to be happy, joyous, and free. So anyway, we're going to teach tonight on the family afterward. First, this is anniversary evening, and so I didn't. I thought I had a medallion for Doug, and he has graciously said it's okay that I don't have it, but I'd still like to celebrate with him this evening. And first, yeah, 19, yeah. Oh, okay. Do you want to present it to him? Sure. All right.
19 years. All right, sir. Nachos. I like to say I'm lucky enough to be able to help people, and I want to thank the sponsees that I have for keeping me sober for 19 years.
Amen.
And that's like the most important message that you give to people is to help others. I was in sobriety for a long time, and I heard people make vague references to helping others, like they clean the coffee pots or something. Little did I know, it's the only thing we have that keeps us sober, is sponsoring others. All that other stuff comes second. Okay, thanks for letting me share.
Taking people through this. And Jim is going to present a medallion. We have a surprise celebrant this evening.
Well, it's an honor, a special privilege of mine. I've known her in 20 years, and she and I are getting married, so you know how special she is to me. But after I'd known her about 6 months, she said, I have something I want to tell you. And she said, this is my first day of sobriety. And she shared with me that God had put it on her heart to get honest with me, and that no matter how it turned out, that I would help her, which I have. And it's turned out great, and she's a miracle because 2 years later, she's picking up a 2-year medallion.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, I'm really grateful. This is the third time I'm picking up a 2-year medallion, and this time is really special, and I wanted to come clean or whatever, and I couldn't, even though this is my home group, I couldn't admit that I had had a slip up until now. And I'm just glad to do this because I believe the reason that I went out in the first place this time was because of dishonesty. And so God really put it on my heart that I had to get honest and with the group and pick up this chip in the meeting. So I'm just real grateful to be able to have achieved 2 years again. Every time anybody gets sober, even for a day, it's a miracle. It never was my idea any of the 3 times to get sober. God always put it on my heart that it's something that I needed to do. So that being said, this time I knew where the answers were, and they were in the book, and I knew what the problems were that I was doing, and that was not being honest. I believe if we don't put a check on any of our character defects, honesty, fear, selfishness, or anger, resentment, that the pain of that will become so great that it's inevitable that we drink again. And my problem was I was just in an unhappy marriage, and God gave me the ability to become honest about all that and to do something about it. And so I was able then to accept God's help, because like I said, none of the 3 times was I ever did I ever get sober on my own power. It was always God, because it was never my idea. And I used to call God, hey, you who told me to get sober. Because for a while I couldn't even call him God. Because I figured I couldn't even pray. I didn't even know who he was. I couldn't even talk to him. And I knew it was a power other than myself. And this time coming back, I knew that it was a power greater than myself, and it would take all the power in order to get me sober again. So I just am real thankful and grateful that I'm able to be back and to have the 2 years, and I really thank you guys. There's no greater place to practice the principles than in our family. It seems that sometimes and here's this honesty thing coming up again, we put a face on at work, we put a face on in AA, but when it comes to home life, we don't practice the way that we should with the people that love us the most. And so nothing is more important than the people who love you, yet we feel that we can slack there because that's our home, but really it should be the place where we're the strongest. And so that's why it's so important that we practice these principles in the home, and that's why the family afterward is such an important chapter. Now, we're on page 127. So far up to this point, the focus has been kind of telling the family to lighten up on the alcoholic, because he's not, he's doing the best he can. It's progress and all that. The first paragraph says, let them praise his progress and everything, because he's going to have crankiness, depression, or apathy, which will disappear when there is tolerance, love, and spiritual understanding. So they're telling the family members to be tolerant of the drunk. And of course, this particular paragraph or this chapter is talking to the wife and family of the alcoholic, assuming that it's a man. But as we all know, it could be the other way around. It could be the woman that's the alcoholic in the family. But that's just the spin that they have on this particular, chapter. So anyhow, we're starting with the first full paragraph on 127. I'll teach for a while, and please, if anybody has anything to add or any questions, please contribute. Make sure that the Contributions, though, are about the book, and any contributions you have that could have other chapters in the book or other references in the book that would add to the teaching. We like to keep this meeting focused on the book because this is the solution. And we believe that there's enough meetings out there that are called, we like to refer to in this meeting as Problems Anonymous, where people say, has anybody got a problem? And then everybody talks about the problem, and then everybody gives their opinions. We don't believe that that's helpful, and we believe that it's sometimes destructive. So in this particular meeting, we like to stick to the solution, which is the steps and how to do the steps and how this book teaches us. So if our sharing could focus on that, that's really the only rule. You can share as much as you want in this meeting, but let's just keep it on the book, okay? All right, so let's start with first full paragraph. The head of the house ought to remember that he is, oh, you know what? We didn't read how it works. Okay, good. Let's all read along with. You should always bring your book to the meetings. Reading how it works not only focuses you on what the program is all about, because the entire program is found in those pages, but it's also wonderful to have your book at a meeting in case somebody calls and you can say something from the book and really surprise them. Turn to page 58 and read along so we can all get focused.
Chapter 5, How It Works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those, too, who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided you want what we have and you're willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. At some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. Remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, dastardly, and powerful. Without help, it is too much for us. There is one who has all power, that one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at this turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. 1. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6. We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7. Humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8. Made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10. Continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for the knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Many of us exclaimed, "What an order! I can't go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are God's progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapters to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear 3 pertinent ideas. A. That we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B. That probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. And C. That God could and would if he were sought.
All right, excellent. Thank you. All right, back to page 127. The head of the house ought to remember that he is mainly to blame for what befell his home. He can scarcely square the account in his lifetime. In other words, the 9th step work that he has to do will take his entire lifetime to make amends with his family. And that's why he has to continue with the rest of the steps immediately, because he can't wait till the 9th step is done, because it's going to take forever. He must see the danger of over-concentration on financial success. Although financial recovery is on the way for many of us, we found that we could not place money first. And notice it doesn't say it's a guarantee for all of us. I remember the second time, and I got 3 times coming in the program here, the second time coming in the program, there was a guy, Maurice, he's actually passed away now, and I was at a Christmas party once, and there were a bunch of AA people, and I hadn't come back to the program yet, and Maurice said, "Marilyn, when are you going to come back to the program?" And I said, "Geez, Maurice, I don't know. I don't think I want to come back to the program." And he said, he goes, "Well, how's your money situation?" And I was just that day looking at my money and seeing all the money I was spending on alcohol. And I said, "It's terrible." He goes, "Come back to the program." He goes, "You'll make a lot of money like this." And so I said, "Oh, you know what? Maybe that's true." So I started thinking about it. So then when I came back to the program, every time I saw Maurice, I'm like, "Maurice, where's the money?" Maurice, because it was like, it's not necessarily true that you're going to have money. In fact, on page 84, it talks about this. It talks about where we need to put our focus as far as our life. Because when a lot of us come in here, we figure, well, if I strain out, if I go to the gym a lot, I'll feel a lot better. So we think we're going to strain out physically. And then if I read a lot about alcoholism, I'll straighten out. But on page 64, the last paragraph, right in the middle, it tells us where to put our focus and where our balance lies. And that is when the spiritual malady is overcome. We straighten out mentally and physically. And the word physically also includes financially. So we have to place our focus on growing spiritually, and then we'll straighten out mentally and physically. So it's not about going to the gym. It's not about getting a good job. It's not about reading self-help books. It's about connecting with God. And then when we connect with God, everything else will fall into place. Now, like I said, it doesn't necessarily, however, mean that the finances are going to be greater. But, like the promises say, we will lose our fear of financial insecurity. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to have more money. It just means that we're not afraid of it anymore. I remember one time when I first came in the program, there was this old timer, and he said, "Marilyn," he goes, "I've been sober for 30 years. He goes, since I've been in this program, I have never seen one person that was seriously working these steps that ever needed a place to live or a meal." So if we put God first, we will never have to worry about having our needs met. He will always take care of us. On page 98, it kind of talks about this again. People say, well, I didn't get sober to have less money. Well, that's not the reason we got sober, is for money. The reason we got sober was to live, and to live the life that God wants us to live. In the middle of page 98, or about the middle of the first full paragraph, it says, "Some of us have taken very hard knocks to learn this truth. Job or no job, wife or no wife, we simply do not stop drinking so long as we put dependence upon other people ahead of dependence on God." So, it's not about the money. So if you're here because you think this is like a get rich quick scheme, you better go someplace else, because this ain't what it's about. Joanne, what did you want to say?
I'm sorry, I'm an alcoholic. And I just wanted to say that at one meeting in AA, I learned that we gotta make money our slave and not our master. underneath us and not over ahead of us, because then, you know, if you make it a priority and the most important thing in your life, you know, then, you know, you just, you're not focusing on your sobriety and your recovery, you're just focusing on what you can do with your life, so.
Right.
That they were saying, you know, I learned that, you know, make money your slave, not your master, is what he said. So, I wanted to share that.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And it's all about dependence upon God. You know, because we didn't have God, our focus was on getting more for us, keeping more away from you, stealing from you. It was all about getting and selfish and hoarding. And then what God says is if we focus on Him, that we don't have to focus on any of that at all. Because if we focus on Him, our work will then be not getting things for ourselves, but giving to others. And if we give to others, He promises that all this will be taken care of for us. Now, again, that's not necessarily more money, but it's peace. Because there's people that are wealthy that don't have peace. Because no matter how much money they get, they want more. So with us, it's a matter of being at peace, being grateful for what we have, and sharing with others, helping others, and that gives us a peace that no money can buy. One of the things Jim B., who started this meeting, and by the way, this meeting has been going on since, May 2001. And our teacher, Jim B., used to teach this meeting. He died with 45 years of sobriety, and he used to always talk that you can't buy what this program gives you for $5 billion or something. What he used to say, some outrageous figure like that. And it's really true that it's money doesn't make you happy. And what does make you happy? What we learn in this program, what gives us satisfaction is helping others. And that's why God created us. That's certainly why God brought us here. Because this program teaches us that unless we give it away, we can't keep it. So that's our focus here. So anyway. All right, so back to the reading. For us, material well-being always followed spiritual progress. It never preceded. Material well-being always followed spiritual progress. It never preceded. Now, since the home has suffered more than anything else, it is well that a man exert himself there. He is not likely to get far in any direction if he fails to show unselfishness and love under his own roof. We know that there are difficult wives and families, but the man who is getting over alcoholism must remember he did much to make them so. As the wives were instructed to be patient, we certainly are instructed to be patient with our family members also. Now, one of the sayings that I used to love when that Jim would talk about when he would talk about being slick, and he said that slick meant soft-spoken, loving, considerate, and kind. And notice there's no I in there, so it's, thinking of you. Self-centered, loving, considerate, and kind. So any situation you can approach with that little, what do they call that when you use letters and they mean something?
Acronym.
There you go. You can use that little acronym, SLICK. Soft-spoken, loving, considerate, and kind. And if you are like that, especially at home, you can only bring healing power into that family. Now, as each member of a resentful family begins to see his shortcomings and admits them to others. So there's the fourth and the fifth step, isn't it? Even for the family members. He lays a basis for helpful discussion. These family these family talks will be constructive if they can be carried on without heated argument, self-pity, self-justification, or resentful criticism. And those look like character defects to me. Anger, selfishness, resentful, all they left out of there was fear. Little by little, mother and children will see they ask too much, and father will see he gives too little. Giving rather than getting will become the guiding principle. And again, just as I was talking about what our guiding principle has to be, rather than getting, we have to think about giving. The family also has to focus on the same thing, what they can bring to the table rather than what they can take to the table. Now, assume on the other hand that father has, at the outset, a stirring spiritual experience. Overnight, as it were, he's a different man. He becomes a religious enthusiast. He is unable to focus on anything else. As soon as his sobriety begins to be taken as a matter of course, the family may look at their strange new dad with apprehension, then with irritation. There is talk about spiritual matters morning, noon, and night. He may demand that the family find God in a hurry or exhibit amazing indifference to them and say he is above worldly considerations. He may tell mother, who has been religious all her life, that she doesn't know what it's all about. And then she had better get his brand of spirituality while there is still time. When father takes this tack, the family may react unfavorably. So nobody likes to be told what to do, especially when you brought so much pain into their lives, and now you act like you're holier than thou, right? They may be jealous of a God who has stolen dad affections. While grateful that he drinks no more, they may not like the idea that God has accomplished the miracle where they failed. They often forget Father was beyond human aid. They may not see why their love and devotion did not straighten him out. Whenever, just like if we ever feel like we got ourselves sober, the family has to understand that we really don't have much to do with it. Like when I asked Doug if he was going to say something, he's like, I don't want to say nothing. People act like it's a big prideful thing when you get years or whatever. And we should, like Doug said, what a humble man with 19 years, because that's quite an accomplishment. But we should all take the tack that, each day is a gift from God, that on our own strength we would have nothing. And I went to a meeting this morning, and the guy said, how usually they say, if you're sober today, thank your higher power, or, thank yourself and your higher power. He said, if you're sober today, you probably didn't have anything to do with it. And he sat down. So it's like, we have to understand always where this power comes from, and our family has to understand that too. And so when we are trying to jam God down their throats, that's not humility. It's like we need to be grateful and realize that God has to open our hearts. The power has to come from within. And if we are fortunate enough that God has touched us within, and we see the light, what makes us think that we can force it on other people from without? It has to come to your family from within too. So then the best way to handle your family is the best way to handle any alcoholic, and that's to pray for them so that God would touch them from within, not to throw it down their throat. Anyway, they might not see why their love and devotion did not straighten him out. Dad is not so spiritual after all, they say. If he means to right his past wrongs, why all this concern for everyone in the world but his family? What about his talk that God will take care of them? They suspect Father is a bit balmy, which means nutty. He is not so unbalanced as they may think. Many of us have experienced Dad's elation. We have indulged in spiritual intoxication. Like a gaunt prospector, belt drawn in over the last ounce of food, our pick struck gold. Joy at our release from a lifetime of frustration knew no bounds. What a beautiful promise that is, and it's an amazing thing to get sober. Father feels he has struck something better than gold. For a time, he may try to hug the new treasure to himself. He may not see at once that he has barely scratched a limitless load, which will pay dividends only if he minds it for the rest of his life and insists on giving away the entire product. What a beautiful analogy that is. He may not see at once that he has barely scratched a limitless load, which will pay dividends only if he minds it for the rest of his life and insists on giving away the entire load. So we can only keep it if we give it away, and we have to give it all away. Now, if the family cooperates, Dad will soon see that he is suffering from a distortion of values. He will perceive that his spiritual growth is lopsided. For an average man like himself, a spiritual life which does not include his family obligations may not be so perfect after all. If the family will appreciate that Dad's current behavior is but a phase of his development, all will be well. In the midst of an understanding and sympathetic family, these vagaries. Will somebody look this up? Dictionary. Does anybody know what that means? Vagaries. Vagaries of Dad's spiritual infancy will quickly disappear. Like being vague?
Yeah.
Okay.
Things
Yeah.
that are big.
Things that are vague.
Not clear.
Yes. The opposite may happen should the family condemn and criticize. Dad may feel that for years his drinking has placed him on the wrong side of every argument, but that now he has become a superior person with God on his side. If the family persists in criticism, this fallacy may take a still greater hold on Father. Instead of treating the family as he should, he may retreat further into himself and feel he has spiritual justification for doing so. Though the family does not fully agree with Dad's spiritual activities, they should let him have his head. Even if he displays a certain amount of neglect and irresponsibility towards the family, it is well to let him go as far as he likes in helping other alcoholics. During those first days of convalescence, this will do more to ensure sobriety than anything else. And many times in the book, we are told that helping others is going to help us to stay sober more than any other thing. Just like Doug said today, that he thanks his sponsees for helping him get sober. We can turn to page 89. In the very first sentence of page 89, it says, practical experience, in other words, our history, shows us that nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics. And what's the work? Just like Doug said, it's not about cleaning the coffee pot. It's about carrying the message. It works when other activities fail. This is our 12th suggestion. Carry this message to other alcoholics. What's the message? The message of the steps. You can help when no one else can. you can secure their confidence when others fail. And life will take on new meanings. This is the thing that helps when everything else fails, and the family needs to realize that if father is ignoring you and he's helping others, it's the one thing that's going to keep him sober. If he focuses on the family and does not focus on helping others, then all that focus on the family will fall apart, because unless his focus is on helping others, his sobriety is in jeopardy. All right, so back to 129. Though some of his manifestations are alarming and disagreeable, we think Dad will be on a firmer foundation than the man who is placing business or professional success of spiritual development. He will be less likely to drink again, and anything is preferable to that. Those of us who have spent much time in the world of spiritual make-believe have eventually seen the childness of it. This dream world has been replaced by a great sense of purpose, accompanied by a growing consciousness of the power of God in our lives. We have come to believe He would like us to keep our head in the clouds with Him, but our feet ought to be firmly planted on earth. And that's always a beautiful line for you to remember. There's so many sentences that ought to be ingrained in your heart, and this is one of them. We have come to believe that He would like us to keep our head in the clouds with Him, but our feet ought to be firmly planted on earth. This is where we live. This is where the people are. This is where our joy is then. And like that's what the next line says. That's where our fellow travelers are, and that is where our work must be done. These are the realities for us. We have found nothing incompatible between a powerful spiritual experience and the life of sane and happy usefulness. And this program has really given each and every one of us a purpose. That's one of the reasons that I'm so grateful, because I know that God can take all things and turn them into good. Although I would not have liked to have had, if I was to create a perfect world, I would not like to have had slips in my life. I believe that God can turn those slips into good, and that I can relate to people that I might not have been able to relate to before if I never had slips. So although I'm not proud of my slips, I know that God can turn everything into good, and that no matter how far down the scale we have gone, we can see where that misery can be turned into productive power if we allow God to take it that way. So I'm just real grateful. Now, one more suggestion. Whether the family has spiritual convictions or not, they may do well to examine the principles by which the alcoholic member is trying to live. They can hardly fail to approve these simple principles, though the head of the house still fails somewhat in practicing them. Nothing will help the man who is off on a spiritual tangent so much as the wife who adopts a sane spiritual program, making a better practical use of it. There will be other profound changes in the household. Liquor incapacitated father for so many years that mother became head of the house. She met these responsibilities gallantly. By force of circumstances, she was often obliged to treat father as a sick or wayward child. Even when he wanted to assert himself, he could not, for his drinking placed him constantly in the wrong. Mother made all the plans and gave all the directions. When sober, father usually obeyed. Thus mother, through no fault of her own, became accustomed to wearing the family trousers. Father, coming suddenly to life again, often begins to assert himself. This means trouble unless the family watches for these tendencies and comes to a friendly agreement about them. And this is one of the reasons why we have to be so careful when we first get in the program, because our family might not be the best people to go to, because sometimes the family members like this power, and they look at you getting sober as power taken away from them, and they might even either consciously or subconsciously try to hinder you from getting sober just so that they can keep that power in the house, or they don't like change or whatever. And so that's why you have to be aware and realize that not everybody understands the alcoholic like we do in these rooms, and that's why our family members are sometimes not on our side. Now, drinking isolates most home from the outside world. Father may have laid aside all normal activities, clubs, civic duties, sports. When he renews interest in such things, a feel of jealousy may arise. The family may feel they hold a mortgage on Dad, so big that no equity should be left for outsiders. Instead of developing new channels of activity for themselves, mother and children demand that he stay home and make up the deficiency. So that selfishness that we have as alcoholics is a sickness that just spreads into our families, and our families become extremely selfish too. They become hoarding and grabbing too. Instead of focusing on helping others, they focus on themselves, just like we did. At the very beginning, the couple ought to frankly face the fact that each will have to yield here, and that if the family is going to play an effective part in the new life, father will necessarily spend much time with other alcoholics, but this activity should be balanced. New acquaintances who know nothing of alcoholism might be made, and thoughtful consideration given their needs. The problems of the community might engage attention. Though the family has no religious connections, they may wish to make contact with or take membership in a religious body. Alcoholics who have derided religious people will be helpful by such contacts. Being possessed of a spiritual experience, the alcoholic will find he has much in common with these people, though he may differ with them on many matters. And how do we get a spiritual experience in this program? Yes, amen. Having had a spiritual experience or awakening as the result of these steps. So, and that's a promise. So if we do the work, we're going to get the results. If he does not argue about religion, he will make new friends, and it is sure to find new avenues of usefulness and pleasure. And this not arguing thing is extremely important in all areas of our life. Let's turn to page 84 again. The last paragraph, partial paragraph, and by the way, let's read the sentence before that. Love and tolerance of others is our code. That's another one that should be burned in your soul, and realize that that is where we need to be at all times. Love and tolerant of others, and put our thoughts to someone we can help. And the paragraph is, and we have ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. We simply do not fight anything or anyone, even alcohol. So this is our goal, that we become love and tolerant, and we do not argue. We do not argue about anything. Okay, so, shoot, I lost my place. 120, page are you on? 130, 132, thanks. If he does not argue about religion, he will make new friends and is sure to find new avenues of usefulness and pleasure. He and his family can be a bright spot in such congregations. He may bring hope and new courage to many a priest, minister, or rabbi who gives his all to minister to our troubled world. We intend the foregoing to be a helpful suggestion only. So far as we are concerned, there is nothing obligatory about it. In other words, nobody forces you to go to church here. As non-denominational people, we cannot make up others' minds for them. Each individual should consult his own conscience. And we certainly, if we are truly grateful for what God has given us, can be an inspiration to the world. I went with Jim. He was in jail, and this church was bringing in speakers. So we went to go to the church to thank them. He wanted to thank the people who brought Bible studies into his church. And we went to the church, and the people just happened to be having a meeting of all the people who brought the meetings into the jails at that time. And so he got to see everybody who had brought meetings into his jail, and he came to thank them, and they were just flabbergasted. They said, you know, of all the only time we ever see anybody again that we go to the jails is when they get brought back to jail again. He goes, nobody ever came to our church to thank us before. And they were really thrilled. And, you know, to see someone really, I mean, when they come in and they talk about, you know, saving people, I mean, who better than us that as far as needing to be rescued. I mean, if you go into jails, I don't know what the percentages of the people that are in jail have to do with alcohol and drugs. I think it's, 95% or something like that. So it's always a blessing because these spiritual leaders can see God at work in us like no others, because we are saved from certain death. So it's a beautiful thing to show them that it works. It works. And anyway, we have been speaking to you of serious, sometimes tragic things. We have been dealing with alcohol in its worst aspect, but we aren't a glum lot. If newcomers could see no joy or fun in our existence, they wouldn't want it. We absolutely insist on enjoying life. And here's another really good sentence that I like. We aren't a glum lot. If newcomers could see no joy or fun in our existence, they wouldn't want it. We absolutely insist on enjoying life. So it's good to have fun, and we deserve it. You know, we've been through hell and back. We deserve to enjoy our lives. God told us that we should be happy, joyous, and free, and that's in the next page here. And we insist on it. So if you're not having fun, then you should, because it's a must, it looks like in the book. So many people say that there's no musts in the book, but there's plenty of them, and the word insist sounds like a must to me. So if you're not enjoying your life, you better do it, because we absolutely insist on it. We try not to indulge in cynicism over the state of the nations, nor do we carry the world's troubles on our shoulders. When we see a man sinking into the mire that is alcoholism, we give him first aid, and this will have his and owners of give him first aid and place what we have at his disposal. So, you know, many people, when they go to the podium and they speak in front of others, like I'm doing today, they tell their horror stories as almost like an entertainment value. And the book tells us that our horror stories are not to be used as entertainment value or one up, like, oh yeah, well, I used to bleed out of, out of my ears. Oh yeah, well, I used to bleed it out of my ears and my nose, or I used to, many times we're almost like competitive with our war stories, and it's not about who is the worst drunk. Our war stories are to be told to the new man so that he can relate for his sake, to tell him that we know where he's at. And that's the reason for it, not to entertain. The point of the podium is to teach the solution, not to entertain and glorify the problem. And that's what a lot of people do. And so it's for the new man, it's for the new sake do we recount and almost relive the horrors of our past. Because we know where he was at, and he needs to know that we know, so that he will listen to us. But those of us who have tried to shoulder the entire burden and trouble of others find we are soon overcome by them. So it's like people come in with a lot of problems, and we know where we're at, and we know that God takes care of us. Ours is not to solve people's problems, but to help people to get to the solver of problems, which is to help them to connect with God. Yes, Joanne?
So what I'm getting out of this chapter is that AA will save your life, but alcohol will kill you.
That's true.
That's what I'm getting out of this chapter. AA will really save your life, whereas alcohol will kill you, and it will.
Yeah, will every time. Yeah, if you're an alcoholic, which I am, I proved it again and again. Some are thicker than others. But, so we think cheerfulness and laughter make for usefulness. How do you like that? Cheerfulness and laughter make for usefulness. So we insist on having fun. Outsiders are sometimes shocked when we burst into merriment over a seemingly tragic experience of our past. But why shouldn't we laugh? We have recovered. We have been given the power to help others. And notice that's recovered, not recovering, or we are recovering. That's another example that we have recovered. In other words, we were powerless over alcohol, but today we have power over alcohol because we have done these steps. We have recovered. Don't you hate it when people say, I have 30 years of sobriety and I'm just as sick as I've always been? Run the other way, because if you have done these steps, you should have recovered. You still shouldn't be recovering. So, and we've given the power to help others. All right, thank you all for coming to the meeting, and thank you for passing the baskets. There are no dues or fees for a membership, but we are self-supporting through our own contributions. In the Stairways Group, we have the chip system to celebrate your first year of sobriety. Would you like to do the chips this evening? Okay. Okay, thanks.